after a tough loss in a really cool neutral site in a big game in overtime, how are the guys kind of recovered?
You go forward. I mean, what a result was. You're still going forward, and golly, I'm trying to think if if you beat Wyoming after that game and it was a good win, you go forward. And like I tell the guy, hey, if something bothers you, then never shoot, or never pitch. That way you never give up a hit if you only throw to 2 or 3 batters. And I'll tell you what, even more so is I think, we know what's in front of us. Certainly playing a really, really good team this week. I say it in terms of they have as many NFL guys as anybody will face this year. You look defensively, they're number 2 in the country in terms of sacks. They have 3 different guys that have 6+ sacks. You look offensively, the balance that they have. They throw for 240 a game. They rush for 165 a game. Very, very few turnovers on the season. And I think they do a tremendous job in terms of pounding the ball forward with some of their boots, some of their movement passes. Obviously, the tight end's a heck of a player. Has got over 70 catches so far this year. And then the other part of it is you just look at their special teams. They're the only team in the country that has a punter that's averaging over 50 yards a punt, and their field goal kicker's made more than 20 field goals, which is a lot. I want to say he's made like 22, 23 field goals already this year. And so we got a huge, huge task in front of us on Saturday, and certainly in a place that's a tough place to play too.
So going up the road to Fort Collins, this is a rivalry game since it's really in state. Just when you get ready for a rivalry game like this, is there something special you need to say to the guys, or is it just another week of trying to go 1-0?
Well, that's it. I mean, I think the only thing you can really, in which you can get consumed is just how do you execute, how do you operate better, how do you communicate better, and those are the things in which you concentrate, and you play better if your focus is on the things that you can control. I mean, you don't. If I want to hit the ball over the green monster, I can't have one eye on the green monster and one eye on the pitcher, or if I'm going to, with my range, if I'm going to hit a deep 3, I can't have one eye on the scoreboard. That only leaves me one eye to look at the hoop. So I think, just in terms of the way, like I said, I mean, just really, really, the communication part of it I think has got to be big. This week, in addition to just the quality of the execution. And when I say quality of the execution, I think so much of their movement stuff that they do, they use a good number of tight ends. They bunch those tight ends together, whether in 2-man bunches or 3-man bunches. And because of it, there's some things that have to occur and recognize whether it's a 2-man bunch or a 3-man bunch that way. I think the other part, offensively, we do got to get a little more continuity. You look, we've had a good number of combinations, and yet I think if we can get for the most part, and you aren't always going to have the same 11 on the field every single week, but if we can get some guys out there up front, in addition on the edges, then, do you gain a couple of more first downs that lead to maybe, who knows, maybe 2 more series or 3 more series, where you earn points, which we need to do.
Final thing for me is Steve Adazio. How much do you know about him? How much have you talked to him over the past couple of years, if any?
A little bit, not significantly. I mean, obviously, I did a really, really solid job at Boston College, and then the experiences that he's had as an assistant too. When you look at Florida and Notre Dame and a few spots where they were highly successful.
Coach, you mentioned after the first question about you just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Is these lessons that the cadets learn here, does that help them, do you think, in their Air Force training about moving on?
Absolutely. I mean, if golly, they're invaluable for everything you do, because I think any experience that you have I mentioned a little bit earlier, you play Wyoming. There were some good things that happened, some things that didn't go real well. You have to learn from those experiences. This past Saturday, you got to learn from those experiences, but you don't live in those experiences. And that's life. And I think the really, really good ones, you proceed. And if you one thing about this, man, we got plenty that grabs our attention right now. When you got to line up and play these guys, just how big, how swift, how active they are, how good they are up front. And really, we haven't, I'm trying to think. Oh, golly, I mean, they got a bunch of these guys that have played against us, too, which for us, I'm trying to think of how many guys we have that have ever even played against Colorado State. And it might be 0 on offense. It might be 0 specialists and 5 on defense. It did. That was a part of it. But even 2 years ago, that's all the guys that have ever played in this game. That's where we got to get, where we go execute, and we really, really get really, really good at our game plan. And that's and I think that's what we're trying to ingrain in our guys, and that'll help them. That'll help them down the road too. Not only as football players, but to what you just mentioned.
You played a pretty good front seven defensively for San Diego State. Their front seven was big and fast. How does this front seven compare?
Jesse, very much so. I think what this group does is how well they get up the field. You look at how disruptive they are in the backfield, and literally the numbers reflect that too. I mean, I think there are times where you can play really, really good football up front and you play blocks well, but maybe the production doesn't show also, where these guys, it's both. I mean, they're excellent playing blocks, and I think, I don't have, I think they have, I want to say they're like 33 or 34 sacks on the season, which I think they're at 33, and number one in the country is at 34. And to have 3 different guys that have already 6 sacks in 9 games tells you how talented they are.
Yeah. Trey McBride's numbers at the tight end position. How rare is it in this day of college football that he's taking, I think, 70% of his snaps in line? He's not split out in the slot. He's making those catches with his hand on the ground. That's pretty special in this day and age, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. You look at all the different ways that he catches balls. He's split out. He can catch a hook. He can catch a hitch. He can catch a down the field route. The various ways that they utilize him with tight end screens. You can tell they put a ton of work and a ton of study in the offseason just to get him even more involved, because he was pretty well involved last year, even though it was a shortened season. And golly, both those guys, it seems like we've heard that last name there for a while, between him and his brother. He is a really, really good football player, and it helps. I think the part where they benefit so much is the offensive line's extremely old. They're big. They're physical. The backs are too. I mean, they're big, big backs, and they resemble a good bit of what he had when he was at Boston College. When they had A.J. Dillon and had a good number, outstanding tailbacks there too. These guys are just large, and they surge forward and are hard to tackle.
Dalton is coming in here after this. Just wondering what you've seen from him this season and what he's added to the team.
Just phenomenal outlook and attitude. That's one of the things right away you realize, and just how much he cares, and I, we talk sometimes, or we do, about pride, and I think there are probably 2 different descriptions. One is that ego-driven, you're consumed with yourself, or is that you care, you want to do something well, you have self-respect, you have respect for others. He's just about all the good stuff that way, and he's he had a phenomenal outlook even back in August and early September, where he would have been easy to say, hey, how much am I really going to play this year? And Ever since September 20th or so, he's been highly involved.
And where have you seen his game grow the most so far?
Just he's filled out physically, and he's improved his route running, and just like I said earlier, he's just so conscientious in terms of how important it is to him.
I mean, you could kind of look back at the last few weeks, maybe starting with Boise State. It's been definitely a grind for these guys. Have you taken anything away from these last few weeks?
It's beautiful. I mean, I say it in the sense that I think in the long haul, we you can go through pretty much every single game, and it's they're going to be close, scrappy, hard-fought battles, and I don't think that's bad though either.
And back to the tight end, what do you envision in terms of your coverage plans for him, and does that impact your personnel? Last week it looked like Brandon Gooding played a lot as opposed to Camby Goff. Does that switch or?
No, your point on. I mean, for us, we, it'll be driven by two factors. One is what personnel maybe is on the field for them. Three factors. Really two, and then what's the down and distance, and what sector of the field though also. And that's what we're doing right now. We're game planning accordingly.
And how would you assess the coverage skills of your linebacker crew?
I'll say this. I do think as the season's progressed, and really we probably separate. We have somewhat. It's not exactly the same. We have two games where we have a package generally, and then we have 10 games of a package that we may use. Now, for each one of those games, it's opponent driven, but I mean they're really two different menus, if you will, from which we select. And I do think as the season's progressed, we've gained a better understanding from our linebackers, just in terms of if it's a zone drop, the value of dropping to 12 yards rather than 8 yards. Because now what you do is you protect maybe a seam throw. Your vision's a little bit better. In our man coverage, probably knowing where help is a little bit better. So it changes. If I have help inside, then I want to stay outside in terms of my leverage. So I think they've grown and improved.
And then looking back the last 2 weeks, there were no points scored in the first half for you guys the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a common denominator in those starts or those halves that you've picked up on?
We'd like to have more. Yeah, to say the least. We'd like to have more.
Okay. And the way they've shown balance, I mean, are they comparable to another team, or what?
They're we played some other teams I thought were really, really well balanced. I thought San Diego State was. I thought Utah State was really well balanced. Wyoming had pretty good balance too. When you go back and look, and Boise did. They had a couple of guys that were, it's probably those three that come to mind most commonly. These guys just do it a little bit differently, and it's because of the number of tight ends that they utilize. And, their tight ends are versatile enough where they can create a bunch of two-back sets, or they're under center two-back sets, which is similar to Wyoming. And yet at the same time, those guys can detach and create almost 3 and 4 receiver sets too. So it is a big-time challenging week. It's why we got to be sharp to no end, and then to go play up there too.
And where does the Ram Falcon Trophy sit when it's here?
It's right in our front office, and right in the front office.
What is the value of that to you?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, sure you'd love to attain it, and yet are we going to play best looking at it, or are we going to play best looking at our key? So the real driver's got to be how well you function and how well you execute, and being ready to go. And, you look back over the years, it's been, there have been certain decades where one team probably wanted a few more than the other. And yet, golly, I don't think we can do a whole lot about that. I do know what we can do is we can do something about today, which we will do.
Micah, did he practice yesterday, by chance?
Yesterday he did not, no.
Do you plan on having him today at all?
We'll see.
Okay. In his place, though, DeAndre Hughes, just thoughts on his performance last week and stepping in for him?
He had, probably the guy. I mean, we don't say a guy plays only a position. I might bring up a guy's a tight end like Dalton King, but we think you have to be able to move guys around in different roles. Now, baseball, it's a little harder. You're either a shortstop or you're a first baseman or either a catcher or a first baseman. If it was basketball, if we wanted a guy to say you're only a 2, well, maybe. Yet, maybe if I like my matchup against you, I'm going to go down to the block and see how well you're going to handle that. So what we did last week, DeAndre had, a couple carries, and they caught a flare out there on the side. Dane had a few carries and had a few catches. And so, just week to week, I do think you have to – it's not a desire, but whoever is kind of involved and up that week, that's who you try to get involved. So there was probably a little bit of merging of roles that way between DeAndre and Dane, and then a little bit with Brandon too.
And then offensive line-wise, I know there's some procedural issues in the last game, especially with the snap. Any change there, or do you think that's just something, hey, we just got to do better in practice?
We got to get better at it. No question we got to, and yet, when you look, it's not everything. I do try to keep a little bit eye on, you're never going to be completely penalty-free, but certainly we'd like to be very, very disciplined in the way we operate, and just – and I'm not saying nationally. We say, all right, we got to be in the top 15 or top 20 in fewest penalties or fewest penalty yards. We want to be really, 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 really good that way.
It kind of seems like you're the designated service academy guy. Your 2 best games have been in the service academy games. Is that just has there been health issues? How has your season gone and why?
I started out with some health issues. Missed a little bit of game 1. Was fully healthy for Navy, and then I hurt my ankle the next week against Utah State, and that's been kind of lingering and holding me back a little bit from being on the field.
Okay. Was this your first game back after that, or had you played some in the games?
I've played a little bit on special teams, a couple of games prior.
Okay. So what do you think your role is now moving forward?
I think it's the same thing. Be on the field, make some plays, make tackles.
And now, what is the linebacking crew's job against a tight end like Trey McBride? Have you in practice, are you guys going to be asked to cover, or is that more the outside backers?
There's probably going to be a mixture. We know that he's one of their big targets. I think he has twice as many catches as everyone else does on their team. So kind of keying on him, figuring out where he's at on the field.
What kind of opportunity would you see that as? If you're lined up against one of the best receivers in the nation, basically, even though he's a tight end,
Right.
How would you view that?
It's going to be a big challenge. He's good. We're going to come at him, and like I said, we're going to key him and try to make plays.
And what are the new goals for the team? Obviously, the Commander-in-Chief's trophy's gone. The league's still there, but, it's going to take some help. What's the motivational factor now for you guys moving forward? And what do you see as kind of the top goals you can still attain?
Right now, we're just probably taking it day by day. Just trying to get better every day. The past is behind us. We can't fix the outcome of the game, so just taking it day by day, trying to get better.
And is there still as much hunger, do you think, in you and in your teammates?
There definitely is. I think no one likes losing, and we're all competitive, so we're still coming after it every day.
And take me through your thoughts of the final play, or not the final defensive play against Army, because you forced the fumble.
Right.
Did you feel it come loose, and what was that all like?
We were just trying to, our back was kind of against the wall. It's overtime, there's adrenaline, and just trying to make a play, and I figured I'd try to get the ball out, and it popped out. The ball bounced the wrong way, couldn't get it.
Was there a brief moment of elation, that you would force this fumble?
I didn't even know it came out until I got up and was turning around. There's a big pile, so I can only assume, I guess, the ball came out.
Cool. And, I know you haven't played in a bowl game yet or suited up for a bowl game.
I have not.
Do you think this was the experience last week? Do you think that felt like a bowl game?
From what I've heard, a lot of people said it gave them bowl game environments. The atmosphere felt like a bowl game just because it was a dome, a new location. No one was a true home team, so.
And how aware are you of the history between Air Force and CSU, especially the past 5 years?
I've heard that we've kept the trophy here for a while.
Is there a certain sense of pride in that because they're an in-state opponent, or because of the resources they have, or anything else that kind of adds to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an in-game. You know, you want to be the better of the teams in the state. So, obviously, going against another team in-state will be a big game to win.
Kind of similar to that question, like you said, it's an in-state. Coach said that CSU probably has the most NFL talent you've played this year on their roster with the Ram Falcon Trophy. I mean, what are just your overall impressions going into Saturday?
It's gonna be a tough one. We're gonna have to fight for it. We're gonna have to make our keys, execute well.
And then the last few weeks, Coach said they kind of been a grind for you guys. You can probably go back to Boise State, San Diego State, you have Army, and now CSU. So what have you taken away from the last maybe the last month of this season?
That we're in every game. We're gonna compete. We're gonna show up every day to work, and we're gonna get better.
How's that locker room right now? Because I know the CIC was just the top of the list for the seniors, and they hadn't won it, and they're now not going to win it in their 4 years here.
Right.
But yet you're now turning around and have to play a rival this week. Just what's the locker room like?
I mean, obviously losing is not the best thing in the world. Losing hurt after the game. Everyone's a little bit down, but yesterday and today I can kind of feel morale is getting better. We're figuring we got a new challenge this week, and we're looking forward.
I know the senior class and the seniors on the defensive side of the ball has been very important to you guys, but I keep on noticing that your junior class continues to step up. Is the defense finally coming into its own with the young underclassmen, not just the upperclassmen, that we know what their roles were going forward?
I think everyone's starting to find their place in the defense, and everyone's getting confident in themselves and are starting to play and make plays. So I think it's starting to morph together.
With the Colorado State rivalry, I mean, you haven't played against them, am I right in saying
I
that?
have not. Yeah.
How much are you just kind of looking forward to experiencing going up to Fort Collins and experiencing this in-state rivalry?
From what I've heard, it's a great environment. It's a great atmosphere to play in. I heard it's gonna be loud, so I'm kind of excited to go up there for the first trip.
So, does the Ram Falcon Trophy mean anything to you, or is it just another piece of hardware, or are you looking at it, hey, we're playing for a trophy this weekend?
Obviously, we're playing for a trophy. We want to keep it here. It's a big game. Like I said, in-state, it's a rivalry, so we want to keep it here.
What is the big challenge for you guys defensively?
Just stop them on it. They like to run the ball. We're going to have to stop the run. Obviously, they've got a good tight end. Try and make plays on him, contain him. So.
And then, you know, it was been talked about how the last few weeks have been quite a challenge.
Right.
How about academically? I know this time of year, I believe, is pretty tough.
Right.
How do you handle all that, I guess?
Time management, really. We get tutors on trips, so that's been helping us a lot. Our teachers know that we're kind of busy, especially when Army comes around, when we got CIC trophies. Like, our mind's sometimes not always in the classroom, but they try to give us extra hours, go get help. So.
And then, so how do you balance the physical exhaustion with the, you know, everything that's expected of you academically?
It's kind of one of those things that you have to deal with at the academy. Like, every day is not going to be perfect. You're going to be tired. Some days you're going to have a project, a paper, everything to do, it seems like, in 2 hours. But going here, you know that you can persevere and get through it, and it's going to be just fine.
Thanks. Everybody talks about the stadium at CSU.
Okay.
Did you travel up there as a sophomore?
I did not. Yeah, I was not.
You guys have never lost there.
Okay.
It's a pretty unique situation to have an in-state stadium you haven't lost in, like, or do you guys ever talk about something like that?
No, it's not. We're just trying to play this game on Saturday.
How do you turn the page to a big rivalry game in CSU?
Yes, sir. We always have team meeting every Monday coming in after the weekend, and Coach Calvin had a good job yesterday of just like resetting our focus. You know, it stings because like this is what like is always circled on our calendar from last week, but CSU is always one of the other games that's really big circled on our calendar as well. And just being able to focus on them and know going forward that you can't get back what's already happened, and we still have 3 games and a bowl game left, and be able to take the opportunity to be able to go out and take what we've earned and what we've worked for all season in the next 3 weeks is something that we're going to focus on heavily.
How much does that trophy mean to you guys? I know the CIC is a big deal, and the bowl game trophy is big, but the Ram Falcon trophy, is that something that you guys prioritize each year?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, being an hour and 45, 2 hours apart, you realize that they're so close. I think a lot of our guys are like Brad Roberts, Caleb Rillos, one of the younger tight ends in our room, a couple of our offensive line. At least in the offensive side, we have a lot of dudes from up there. And so they all grew up coming to Falcon games. They grew up going to CSU games, and so it's fun for those guys for sure to see them be able to. We're just going to be right down the street from where they all grew up, to see them play, and it means a lot to them, and obviously it means a lot to the team as well.
Would you classify it as bad blood, or how would you classify the rivalry between you two teams?
No, sir. I would say that we respect every team that we play, and we've always played them really close. And I know that game in 2019 was fun to be there and be a part of, and we work every week to just try and come out on top, and that's what we're going to do this week.
Dalton, this season, where do you think you've seen your game grow the most?
This year, definitely just being able to probably the biggest for me is off the field, see my game grow the most, is because I think there's so much more that goes into football than what goes on between the lines. Just being able to be there for the younger guys. We only have a couple seniors that have had any really experience going into the season. I had the opportunity to play in a couple games last year, and so just trying to use my 4 years of being here to be able to help the guys, and that just learning the offense more, because when you're able to pour into the running backs room, and you're able to be there for Zeke and Warren and Zach in the quarterback room and stuff, you're able to really learn the offense completely. You don't know it goes from just knowing what the tight end position does to knowing really what everybody else does, and that just helps being there for everybody at the same time.
So do you really value that leadership role that you have in a way?
I have a lot of fun with it, getting to be one of the seniors that are on the offense. We just have me, Hawk, Booth, Warren, Bryan. There's only a couple of Brandon Lewis, a couple of us that have been here all 4 years that didn't take the turn back, and so it's just awesome to be able to go through with them and be able to pour into the younger guys and be there for them and try and lean on pour into them as much as possible.
And I know some of the guys on the team that did take the turn back, they're happy they took it. What about for you? Are you happy you didn't take the turn back, or looking back, would you have liked to have taken it?
I think I got opportunities of lessons learned that I'll never be able to imitate in my life. Last year being put up in a team hotel, not being able to leave campus, being with your guys for 4 or 5 months straight, those are things that you can never take back, and just opportunities that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. So I would definitely say that the opportunity to play football for another year would be awesome, but I wouldn't change what I did for the world.
Sure. And what's your major, and what are you looking to do post-football, post-graduation?
So I'm in business management, and then I put in for pilot. So hopefully we'll find out here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited to hear back what we got.
And then you kind of talked about it already, but just going up to CSU, the in-state rivalry, the Ram Falcon trophy up for grabs. Just what are your impressions of playing at, in Fort Collins this Saturday?
They have a beautiful stadium. It's going to be fun to be there. Good atmosphere. It's super funny just because all the guys know on the team that their student section is pretty rowdy, and they're right behind our bench as well. So just getting to play in the atmosphere is always fun, and getting to play college football on a Saturday is something you always look forward to. So definitely something that we're all excited about.
If you get a pilot slot, what would you ideally like to fly, and how long have you had that aspiration?
I'll fly whatever they put me in. I never really knew much about the academy going until my senior year when the coaching staff reached out to me, and my grandfather went to West Point, and so that's kind of the only understanding that I knew. But getting here and just seeing that the greatest opportunity is to be able to get the opportunity to go and fly is something I didn't want to pass up on, and I was like, you know what, I'll just throw my name in the hat and see if I get it, and if not, then I'll still be able to do something else in the Air Force as well.
Were you able to take powered flight or anything else that has taken you up yet?
No, so I did get to go down to the airfield, and they have the opportunity for cadets to have a much cheaper, expense of flying. You get to buy hours down at the airfield. So I got to do that to try and help with my testing scores and stuff going into that goes into your testing score for a pilot.
And when Coach was in here, he was talking about playing CSU, and basically on offense, none of you have seen the field at CSU, at least in your current positions. Is that an advantage? Because there has been a lot of turnover on their side too. They won't have seen the Air Force offense as you guys run it. Do you think when you go into a team that hasn't really seen you guys before, does that work? I would think that works to your favor.
Yes, sir. So we know it's a new coaching staff, and we also know that it's last year we had the opportunity. So I think we had 2 weeks before we played them last year with the COVID schedule and so a lot of the guys that are here right now scouted, and we got ready for CSU, and I know they canceled the game the day before, and so we were ready then, and so it's really pulling some things back out from last year. I know we pulling out the similar things that we did last year in practice and getting ready for the game, but I do think that it's beneficial. I think a lot from the last 7-8 games that we've got and learned enough things to be able to put forward to this game, and I don't think that might go into effect necessarily of being there, because we try and go into every game we've been here and we know what we're doing, and confidence in ourselves that we don't need to worry about if we've been on that stage or on that field or with that team before.
And when you talk about refocusing, and that was Coach's message, is that harder said than done, especially coming after Army and the last 2 weeks, really, to go from 6-1 to where you are now? Is there a certain thing you have to find in your brain to keep the same level of motivation and hunger?
Yes, sir. I think it comes with a gut punch, but I think that's something that we really get taught here at the academy well, is you roll the punches and you learn how to be resilient enough to be able to come out and go on to the next thing, and try and not look at the things behind you, because if you're looking backwards, you're never going to be able to see what's coming in front of you. And I know that's something Coach Calhoun says a lot. And so that's just something that we all try to, because like I said, we have 3 games left in a bowl game, and why look and see what's happened the last 3 weeks when we can go out and take the opportunities for the next 4 to be able to really go out on top the best way we can do.
And then as a tight end, obviously you're studying CSU's defense, but is there part of you that's anxious to see what Trey McBride looks like, in person as a tight end?
Oh, yes, sir. I know my freshman and sophomore year scouting, when I was on scout team with the defense, I always looked forward to CSU week, just because, every other play, you're getting the ball, and it's super fun. So we've been messing with our younger tight ends, Rocky Beers, and a couple of the guys who are wearing 85 this week for them that they better enjoy, because it's pretty fun.